Chapter 1: The Beginning. Sarah sat alone in her room, surrounded by silence. She liked the quietness, but something felt off today. She could hear her own breathing and the sound of her heart beating in her chest. As she sat there, she gazed out the window and noticed that everything seemed to be still. The trees were motionless, and there were no cars or people outside. Suddenly, her phone rang, shattering the stillness. Sarah picked up the phone and said, "Hello! Hi, Sarah!" "It's me, Lily," said the voice on the other end of the line. "Lily! Hi! How are you?" asked Sarah, excited to hear from her friend. "I'm good, thanks. I was just calling to see if you wanted to hang out today," said Lily. Sarah thought for a moment, then replied, "Sure, that sounds great." "What did you have in mind?" "I was thinking we could go to the park and have a picnic," suggested Lily. Sarah smiled. "That sounds like a lovely idea. What time should we meet?" "How about in an hour?" suggested Lily. "Okay, I'll meet you at the entrance to the park in an hour," confirmed Sarah. After hanging up the phone, Sarah got ready for her day out with Lily. She couldn't wait to see her friend and spend time in the fresh air. She picked out her favorite outfit and put on her shoes. As she left her house, she noticed that everything around her seemed quieter than usual. The streets were empty, and there were no birds chirping. It was like the world had gone still. Sarah wondered if it was just her imagination, or if something strange was happening. She shrugged it off and continued on her way to the park. As she walked, she couldn't help but feel like something was off. The silence was so loud that it felt like it was suffocating her. When she arrived at the park, she saw Lily waiting for her at the entrance. As she approached her friend, she noticed that Lily looked just as uneasy as she felt. "Hi, Lily," said Sarah. "Do you feel like something is off today? The world seems so quiet." Lily nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it's like the sound of silence is everywhere. It's giving me the creeps." Sarah felt relieved that she wasn't the only one who felt that way. They walked through the park, looking for a spot to have their picnic. As they walked, Sarah noticed that there were no people or animals in sight. It was as if they were the only ones in the world. After finding a quiet spot, they laid out their blanket and started to eat their lunch. As they ate, they could hear the sound of their own chewing and swallowing, and the sound of the wind blowing through the tree. It was an eerie feeling, and they both felt like they needed to break the silence. "Do you want to listen to some music?" asked Sarah, pulling out her phone. Lily nodded eagerly. "Yes, please. Maybe some upbeat music will help break the silence." Sarah put on some music, and they both started to dance and sing along. It felt good to make some noise and break the eerie silence. However, as the song ended, they could hear the sound of silence once again. They looked at each other, feeling uneasy. Little did they know that the sound of silence would soon become more than just an eerie feeling. Chapter 2: The Disappearance. As Sarah and Lily packed up their picnic, they noticed that the silence had become even more pronounced. It was like the world had been muted, and they were the only ones left making any noise. As they walked through the park, they saw that there were still no people or animals in sight. It was as if they were walking through a ghost town. Suddenly Lily stopped in her tracks. "Sarah, look over there!" she exclaimed, pointing to a nearby playground. Sarah looked in the direction of Lily's finger and gasped. The playground was completely empty, except for a child's ball bouncing on the ground, seemingly moving on its own. "What is going on?" whispered Sarah, her heart racing. Lily shrugged. "I don't know, but I don't like it. Let's get out of here." As they turned to leave, they heard a faint whispering sound. They stopped in their tracks, trying to pinpoint where the sound was coming from. It was then that they noticed a group of people standing in the distance, all huddled together and whispering. Sarah and Lily approached the group, hoping to find some answers. As they got closer, they saw that the group was made up of people of all ages, from children to seniors. They were all whispering to each other, looking around in confusion. "Excuse me, do you know what's going on?" asked Sarah, approaching the group. The group turned to face Sarah and Lily, and their expressions of confusion turned to shock. One of the older men in the group stepped forward and said, "You two, you're the only ones we've seen all day. Everyone else has disappeared." Sarah and Lily looked at each other, their hearts pounding in their chests. "What do you mean, disappeared?" asked Lily, her voice shaking. "The man's side, we don't know. They were just gone. One minute they were here, and the next they weren't. We've been trying to figure out what's going on, but we can't find any answers." Sarah and Lily felt a chill run down their spines. The sound of silence had turned into something much more ominous. People were disappearing without a trace, and nobody knew why. As they left the group and continued walking, Sarah and Lily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. They quickened their pace, their hearts racing with fear. It was then that they heard a sound, faint at first, but growing louder by the second. It was a sound they never thought they would hear again, the sound of people talking, laughing, and going about their day. The sound of life. They ran towards the sound, hoping that they would find some answers. As they got closer, they saw that there were people everywhere, going about their day as if nothing had happened. Sarah and Lily felt a sense of relief wash over them. They were no longer alone, and the world was no longer silent. However, they knew that they would never forget the sound of silence and the feeling of unease that it brought with it. Something had changed, and they knew that their lives would never be the same again. Chapter 3: Searching for Answers. Sarah and Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was not quite right, even as they walked among the crowd of people, going about their day. They couldn't help but wonder what had caused the sudden disappearance of so many people. As they walked, they overheard snippets of conversation. Some people were talking about a strange virus. Others were speculating about a mass alien abduction, and some were even discussing the possibility of a government conspiracy. Sarah and Lily exchanged worried glances. They knew they needed to find out what was really happening. They decided to head to the nearest library, hoping to find some answers. When they arrived, they found that the library was almost empty. The only person there was the librarian, an elderly woman with wire-rimmed glasses and a kind smile. "Excuse us, do you have any information about what's been happening today?" asked Sarah. The librarian sighed. "I'm afraid not. We've had a few people come in looking for information, but all of our computers and internet access have gone down. It's like we're cut off from the rest of the world." Sarah and Lily exchanged worried glances. They knew that if even the library's computers were down, then something serious was happening. As they were about to leave, the librarian called out to them, "Wait, I do have one book that might be of interest to you. It's an old book about local legends and mysteries. Maybe there's something in there that could help." Sarah and Lily eagerly accepted the book and began to search through it. As they turned the pages, they came across a chapter on a local legend about a cursed park. According to the legend, anyone who entered the park would be struck by a terrible curse that would cause them to disappear without a trace. Sarah and Lily looked at each other, their eyes wide with realization. They knew that this was the answer they had been searching for. "We have to go back to the park," said Lily. Sarah nodded. "We have to find a way to break the curse." As they left the library and made their way back to the park, they could feel a sense of danger lurking just around the corner. They knew that breaking the curse would not be easy, but they were determined to save the people who had disappeared and bring an end to the sound of silence. Chapter 4. Into the Cursed Park. Sarah and Lily cautiously made their way back to the park, their hearts pounding with fear and anticipation. As they approached the entrance, they could feel a strange energy emanating from the trees and bushes. The park was deserted, just as it had been earlier that day, but now, with the knowledge of the curse, the silence felt even more oppressive. They walked deeper into the park, searching for any sign of the missing people. As they walked, they noticed that the plants and trees looked sickly, with wilted leaves and branches that seemed to be dying. Suddenly, they heard a faint rustling sound. They froze, their eyes darting around in search of the source of the noise. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Sarah saw movement. She turned just in time to see a figure disappearing into the bushes. Without thinking, Sarah and Lily sprinted after the figure, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. They crashed through the underbrush, following the sound of footsteps. Finally, they emerged into a small clearing, where they saw a group of people huddled together, looking frightened and confused. It was the missing people. Sarah and Lily rushed forward, relief washing over them. They explained what they had discovered about the curse and urged everyone to leave the park as quickly as possible. But as they tried to lead the group to safety, they were suddenly confronted by a figure emerging from the shadows. It was an old woman, her face twisted in anger. "You have no right to be here," she screeched. "You have disturbed the spirits of this park, and now you must pay the price." Sarah and Lily tried to reason with the woman, but she was beyond reason. She began to chant in a language they didn't understand, and the ground beneath their feet began to shake. With a loud crack, a tree fell to the ground, narrowly missing the group. Sarah and Lily realized that they had to act fast. They needed to find a way to break the curse before it was too late. Thinking quickly, they remembered something from the old book they had found at the library. It mentioned that the curse could only be broken by a sacrifice of love. Sarah turned to Lily. "We have to do it," she said, her voice shaking. "We have to sacrifice ourselves to break the curse." Lily's eyes widened with shock and fear, but she nodded bravely. "I'll do it with you," she said. With tears in their eyes, Sarah and Lily clasped hands and stepped forward, offering themselves as the sacrifice of love. Suddenly a blinding light filled the clearing, and the ground stopped shaking. The old woman disappeared, and the park returned to its normal, peaceful state. As Sarah and Lily emerged from the park, they saw that the missing people had reappeared. They were confused and disoriented, but they were safe. Sarah and Lily knew that they had saved the day, but they also knew that they would never forget the sound of silence that had haunted them for so long. They knew that they had been changed forever by the experience, but they were grateful for the love and courage that had guided them through it. Chapter 5: Aftermath. After breaking the curse and saving the missing people, Sarah and Lily were hailed as heroes in their small town. The local news featured them prominently, and they were interviewed on several radio and TV stations. However, Sarah and Lily didn't feel like heroes. They had been through a traumatic experience, and they were still struggling to come to terms with what had happened. The night after they broke the curse, they sat in Sarah's bedroom, sipping hot chocolate and talking about what had happened. "I can't believe we did it," Sarah said, staring off into the distance. "It all feels so surreal." "I know," Lily replied, her voice soft. "But we did it together." "That's what matters," Sarah nodded, but she still felt uneasy. "I just keep thinking about the sacrifice of love. Was it worth it? Did we do the right thing?" Lily put a hand on her friend's shoulder. "Sarah, we saved all those people. We stopped the curse. We did the right thing." Sarah sighed. I know. It's just hard to shake the feeling that we're not done yet. Like there's still something left to do." Lily gave her friend a small smile. "We'll figure it out together. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Lily tried to return to their normal lives. They went back to school, hung out with friends, and tried to put the curse behind them. But it wasn't easy. The sound of silence still haunted them, and they couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then one day, Sarah was walking through the park when she noticed something strange. The plants and trees were no longer sickly and dying. They were vibrant and alive, with leaves and flowers that seemed to be glowing. Sarah called Lily, and they went to the park together. As they walked, they saw that the park had been transformed. The curse was truly broken. They felt a sense of relief wash over them, but they also knew that they had to say goodbye to the park. It would never be the same again. As they left the park for the final time, Sarah and Lily looked at each other and smiled. They had been through a harrowing experience, but they had come out the other side stronger and braver than ever before. The sound of silence still echoed in their memories, but now it was a reminder of the love and courage that had guided them through the darkness. Chapter 6: Moving On. As time passed, Sarah and Lily continued to heal from the trauma of the curse. They still talked about it from time to time, but the memories no longer haunted them like they used to. One day, Sarah received an email from a music school in New York City. They had heard about her incredible singing voice and wanted her to audition for a scholarship. Sarah was thrilled, but also nervous. She had always dreamed of pursuing music professionally, but she had never taken it seriously. The curse had made her realize the importance of following her dreams and not taking life for granted. Lily was supportive of Sarah's decision to audition, but she also felt a sense of loss. She didn't want to lose her best friend, but she knew that Sarah needed to follow her heart. As Sarah prepared for her audition, She felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had never been to New York City before, and the thought of living there seemed overwhelming. But when she arrived in the city and heard the sounds of the bustling streets, she felt a sense of belonging. She knew that this was where she was meant to be. Sarah's audition was a success, and she was awarded the scholarship. She moved to New York City and began studying music. Lily missed her friend, but was happy to see her living her dream. They stayed in touch through phone calls and video chats, and Sarah would come back to their hometown to visit whenever she could. Over time, Lily also found her own passion. She started writing and illustrating children's books, something she had always loved but had never pursued seriously. Together, Sarah and Lily continued to grow and support each other, even from a distance. They had learned that life was precious, and they couldn't take it for granted. They had also learned that the sound of silence wasn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it was a reminder to listen to their hearts and follow their dreams. Chapter 7, Reunited. Years passed, and Sarah became a successful musician, performing in some of the biggest venues in New York City. Lily had also found success as a writer and illustrator, and she had published several best-selling children's books. Despite their success, they never forgot the bond they had forged during the curse. They still talked about it from time to time, and the memories remained a powerful reminder of their friendship. One day, Sarah received an invitation to perform at a music festival in their hometown. She was thrilled to be able to come back and perform for the people who had supported her from the beginning. Lily was also excited to see her friend again. They had stayed in touch over the years, but they hadn't seen each other in person for a long time. When Sarah arrived in town, Lily was there to greet her at the airport. They hugged each other tightly, and tears of joy filled their eyes. "It's so good to see you again," Sarah said, smiling. "You too," Lily replied. "I can't wait to hear you perform again. The music festival was a huge success, and Sarah's performance was a highlight of the event." As they walked through the festival grounds, Sarah and Lily talked about old times and caught up on each other's lives. As the night wore on, they found themselves sitting by the lake where they had broken the curse all those years ago. The sound of silence was still present, but it was no longer a source of fear. It was a reminder of the love bravery that had brought them through the darkness. "I can't believe it's been so long," Sarah said, looking out at the lake. "It feels like just yesterday we were breaking the curse," Lily nodded. "I know, but look at us now. We've come so far." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the gentle sound of the water lapping against the shore. Then Sarah turned to Lily. "I just want you to know how much your friendship means to me," she said. "You were there for me when I needed you the most, and I'll never forget that." Lily smiled. "You were there for me too. We saved each other. Remember?" Sarah nodded. "I do. And I hope we'll always be there for each other, no matter what." Lily took Sarah's hand. "We will be, I promise." As they sat by the lake, watching the stars above, Sarah and Lily knew that they had come full circle. They had faced their fears and overcome them, and they had done it together. The sound of silence was no longer a source of terror. It was a reminder of the strength and courage that lay within them. Chapter 8: A New Beginning. After the music festival, Sarah and Lily returned to their respective cities, but they continued to stay in touch. They visited each other whenever they could, and they always made time to catch up on each other's lives. Years passed, and they both continued to pursue their passions. Sarah became an even bigger star in the music world, and Lily continued to publish best-selling children's books. But they never forgot the bond they had formed during the curse, and they always remembered the lesson they had learned. Life was precious, and they couldn't take it for granted. They had to live each day to the fullest, and they had to be there for each other, no matter what. One day, Sarah received an unexpected call from Lily. She sounded excited and nervous all at once. "I have news," Lily said, barely able to contain her excitement. "I'm moving to New York City." Sarah couldn't believe it. "Really? That's amazing. When?" "Next month," Lily replied. "I've always loved New York, and I feel like it's time for a change. And I want to be closer to you." Sarah was overjoyed. "I can't wait to have you here. We'll have so much fun together." And they did. Lily settled into her new life in New York City, and she and Sarah were practically inseparable. They explored the city together, went to concerts and art exhibits, and continued to support each other's careers. And as they sat by the lake one night, listening to the sound of silence once again, they knew that this was just the beginning. They had come so far, and they had faced so much together, but they also knew that there were still adventures to be had and challenges to overcome. As they gazed up at the stars, Sarah and Lily made a promise to each other. They would always be there for each other, no matter what. And the sound of silence would always be a reminder of the strength and courage they had within themselves. For Sarah and Lily, the sound of silence was no longer a curse. It was a reminder of the love and friendship that had brought them through the darkness and into a new beginning.